This is Keith with How to Build Your Own Home, and I want to talk about a nightmare that happens a lot, especially in the industry. What happens when you've got some bids come in and you're breaking ground and one of your subcontractors comes up to you and says, I got a typo. When I sent this bid to you, this is supposed to be this price and not this price, and it's a $10,000 increase. How do you handle that on the spot right when it's happening and this person has already started the job? All right. It typically happens in excavation. It often happens in concrete, and it happens in framing lumber and framing labor. Those are the four areas where you'll get overages, especially when you're dealing with subcontractors that are not as experienced. How do you deal with that? Well, this is how I deal with it as a builder, because I run across this all the time. First of all, you have to ask yourself, was this a bait and switch? Did they bait me in with a low bid on one line item and then surprise me, switch on me later? I don't think this is the case. I trust him. He's been in business for a long time. We went back and forth on the bids, and he changed a lot of things, and his wife runs the back end, and it was a typo. Stuff like that happens. So as a builder, I have a sneaky way of dealing with budgets. I hate tapping into the overall contingency early on in the build of a home. What that means is anytime you get a loan from a lender, a bank or a lending institution to build a home, they're going to make sure or ask if you have a 7 to 10% contingency over the total budget. So if it's a $300,000 home, you should have at least $30,000 in contingency. That's in case of stuff like this happens. But I hate touching that contingency at all. So I went through my budget and I sneak things into my budget. I'm being honest with you. When it comes to excavation, I know several line items in the budget for excavation that are important, like what's the footing cost? Well, I have a backhoe and I typically dig my own footings, and so I put in a line item there for footings. There's a price. It's, let's say it's $1,200 or $800 to do all the footings for that. Then there's another line item that's separate over here that's excavation related, and another line item over here that's excavation related, and another 2 or 3 that are separate that are also concrete related. And I say, okay, I can use that, I can use that, I can use that because they're not included and whatnot, and I can come together. So after sitting down for about 20 minutes, I found $6,500. Okay, so now I'm only short $4,000. But in the budget that I actually submitted to the bank, I submitted a higher budget estimate that came in from another subcontractor. I didn't submit his budget, so that's another $4,000. So I found the 10 grand. Without tapping into any of the contingencies. Now, I add 3% to sometimes 5% contingencies on concrete and excavation and framing and lumber and framing labor. Those are the four I add additional contingencies on, and I'm typically under budget 95% of the time when I finish my homes because I sneak stuff into the budget. I'm a builder. I hate being surprised and not having a resource. So I'm actually sneaky. I'm being honest here. I don't do that for my own sake. I'm not trying to puff the budget up here. I'm trying to be realistic because I know things happen. Now we can use one of my subcontractors who gave a bid, who never changes his bid, and he's pretty solid. And we're good. We're good to go. We're not going to have any problems. Or if they want to keep this contractor and use him for the concrete slab on grade, but his is going to be $5,000 more than my regular subcontractor. This is the problem with going after cost. If you go after cost and get the low bid every single time, without a doubt, you can typically run into problems like this, which is why I ask around and you find the best quality for the best price, and this person is pretty stable. So I've used the same concrete guy now for 14 years. He's been that solid. And I'm being forced to use a different person, and lo and behold, I get this switcheroo on me. So I was planning for it. I kind of anticipated something like this could happen. I knew what to do inside the budget. For the most part, I'm 75% covered without tapping into the contingencies. I'll show that to my clients, and then they'll get to decide. Do we use these padded areas that I have padded for? Or do we go after and use my guy and save several $1,000s? So that's how I deal with it. When I'm coming up against a subcontractor who's new, that I'm not familiar with, I make sure that I have some areas covered so that if I need to, I can pull some from some resources. And as a result, I'm a higher bid than most general contractors, but my clients love me at the end. They hate me at the beginning because I'm realistic, but at the end, we save on some money, and that's why I can be under budget. I hope that helps you out. Know the line items for budgeting. Don't line item at zero. I said that on another post. If you get bids in and you put that exact bid amount for every single line item, you're going to be over budget. Know what could be over, what might go over. Know what those are and add a higher budget in, but select that bid if it's a lower bid. That way you're pretty safe. And do that on a couple of bids, especially in concrete, especially excavation, especially framing labor. If you trust a bid that's a lower bid, but budget for the higher bid, there's nothing wrong with that. You know you're taken care of. If you don't do that in a couple of areas, mark my words, you're going to be pinching yourself and say, why didn't I listen to Keith at How to Build Your Own Home? So I hope that helps you out. I wanted to be realistic as we're getting close to Halloween. It's kind of a Halloween nightmare story. You run across a lot of those in the industry. Be cautious with your budgeting, be smart, and best of luck.